The last speaker in explanations of vote after the vote. As agreed at the 45th plenary meeting on 12 December 2023, the Assembly will resume its debate on Agenda Item 5. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the State of Palestine.
Mr. President, the Israeli assault is a war against Palestinian civilians, Palestinian children, Palestinian history, Palestine presence, Palestinian existence. It targets the population, the hospitals, the infrastructure, the homes, the bakeries, the landmarks, the historic mosques and churches that stand witness to our diverse and long history. Israel has destroyed and flattened entire neighborhoods, displaced virtually every Palestinian in Gaza, brought back the scenes and memories of the 1948 Nakba with the massacres and the forced transfer of our people. It also targets our present and future, killing engineers and doctors and poets and academics. It also targets those who could document the crimes and inform the world, the journalists. We mourn one of those journalists, Samer Abu Dagga, wounded in an Israeli drone strike and left to bleed to death for 6 hours, while ambulances were prevented from reaching him. We tell his colleague Wael al-Dahdouh, whose wife Amna, his 15-year-old son Mahmoud, his 7-year-old daughter Sham, and his 1.5-year-old grandson Adam had been killed in a previous Israeli strike a few weeks ago, and who was himself wounded in the same drone strikes as Samer. Wael al-Dahdouh, after he was told about this tragedy, he said, "Ma'alish." We tell Wael, "Mush ma'alish." Enough is enough. This is how Israel conducts its assaults through atrocities, because its goal is not security, not the security of those held captive in Gaza, not the security of the Israeli people, but the destruction and displacement of the Palestinian people, even if that means prolonging the conflict indefinitely. Mr. President, a Palestinian mother looking over her little child explained, "I named him Ayub for patience, and Ayub is one of our prophets. He is the prophet of patience." She was aware that being a Palestinian born in Gaza under occupation, under blockade, he would need endless patience to endure the suffering that would be inflicted upon him. But she never imagined the suffering reaching such magnitude. Like the mother of Ayub, Palestinian parents have been praying with anguish that they would not have to wait any longer for the horrors to stop and for their children to be saved. Countries have a moral and legal obligation to act, to make the horrors stop, to save human lives. Mr. President, 1 million Palestinian children in Gaza are facing a death sentence that can take effect at any moment. Remember what the Secretary General said. The Gaza Strip is a graveyard of children. No country should be part in issuing such death sentences or accepting to co-sign with the murderers the death certificates for our children. Mr. President, people around the globe have been calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, of course, including the Secretary General and all the leaders of UN humanitarian agencies. The United Nations, through the Secretary General and all its agencies, have been calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. The humanitarian and human rights community have been calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. The Security Council, through 13 of its members, was ready to call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, only blocked by one vote, one veto. The General Assembly acted where the Security Council was prevented to act to uphold international law towards the protection of civilians and ensuring the maintenance of international peace and security. The vote was unequivocal. The world is calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. 157 countries voted in favor. Only 10 voted against. There is no way to end the massacres of civilians, including children, at an unprecedented pace to address the occupation-made humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented scale except through a ceasefire. Do you see what our people in Gaza are enduring? Do you see our children under the rubble? Do you see them starving? Do you see them being amputated? Do you see them shivering? Our children are killed or orphaned. They know now much more about death than about life. They are not collateral damage. They are yet another generation that has fallen victim to the Israeli war machine. Our children have always been a target, with the aim to terrorize and traumatize a nation in the hope to defeat it. What is a war whose primary victim are civilians, mainly women and children? It is a war of massacres. Is there a right to massacre in international law? How could anyone defend this war when it has been led through massacres, one day after the other, even today as we sit in this chamber? Israel is treating Palestinians as it called them, human animals, slaughtering them and starving them. How can anyone support that or even stand idly by while it happens? Those who are calling for protecting civilians, for upholding the law of war, for humanitarian assistance and access, while refusing to call for a ceasefire, are delusional at best. Israel has been committing heinous atrocities for over 2 months, in fact 70 days, has been deliberately making Gaza unlivable for human life for over 2 months, has been forcibly displacing 2 million Palestinians for over 2 months. This is an integral part of the assault. It is by design criminal. aimed at inflicting maximum pain to force a people out of their country. Israel has confessed to this goal, to this crime. You cannot oppose the ethnic cleansing of our people while at the same time supporting the assault that is enabling it. For those attempting to shame those who call for a humanitarian ceasefire, you have failed. The General Assembly spoke. The world spoke. 153 countries spoke. Shame is on those who refuse to stand against atrocities. In the name of humanity, morality, and legality, the General Assembly has acted, demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Israel has failed in its efforts to bully, intimidate, and silence the member states of the UN. Member states have voted yes to the UN Charter, voted yes to the Geneva Conventions. On this 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they voted yes for human rights. And on this 75th anniversary of the Nakba, they voted against new Nakba and never again to allow another Nakba to happen. We salute all of you who stood with the Palestinian people and who stood with justice and with international law. This vote must be followed by a resolute collective action to ensure implementation of this resolution without any further delay. Every day, every hour, every minute counts as a human tragedy continues unfolding. Mr. President, the Palestinian people are here to stay, in our homeland to stay. They are entitled to freedom and independence. This is the only path towards shared peace and security. Netanyahu is demonstrating every day that the target of this assault is the Palestinian people and the Palestinian state. He is saying it openly. Supporting this assault is allowing Netanyahu to pursue his criminal objectives. Netanyahu's place is in a court in The Hague, not in power in Israel. Mr. President, Ayub was killed with his siblings in the bombing of their home by Israel. We all failed him and failed thousands of other children, thousands of women, men, families. We are today to save all those who can still be saved. Every life is sacred, and there is nothing more sacred than the life of a child. Let's save the children of Palestine. For those who say they oppose atrocity, crimes, we ask, is there an exception if it is Israeli committing those crimes, or if the victims are Palestinians? There is no doubt that what is happening in Gaza are atrocity crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. In the face of such atrocities, there is only one moral position, one defensible position: ceasefire now, ceasefire now, ceasefire now, and stop the genocide. Stop the genocide. Stop the genocide committed against the Palestinian people and their children.